That's right. All right, we're back. We are Game 2015. That's VR development in the winter 2019 semester at George Brown. And for week 5, part 1 of our broadcast, we're talking about GoogleVR installation and setup. And notice it's like a separate thing. But before we move on, some administrative points. I'm on Thursday. It's going to be a bit of a mix-up in terms of what we're going to be doing. I'm going to start off with a bit of meeting with everybody first. Okay, so I want to meet with all the teams, all 10 teams that I have. I'm going to spend about an hour doing so, right, total, right, for the first hour. The first hour I meet on Thursday is going to be just us meeting together with your teams. I want to see your backlog. I want to see your sprint backlog. So I want to see your project backlog and your sprint backlog. Those two things, guys, I need to see on Thursday, okay? So what your sprint, what you're working on right now for your sprint, your current sprint, and what your total backlog is, all your features, right, that I'm looking for the project that you've kind of put in there. It may not be the complete list. It may be more things you're going to actually do than you're actually going to do. Maybe you're going to pivot. Maybe you're going to make something else at the end, right? But I want to see a plan of all the features that you're going to produce for this semester. Okay, that's Thursday. All right, so it's almost going to be a little stand-up meeting to kind of understand what you're doing. Now, remember, that room is not a technology room. Okay, so it's not like I'm going to have a laptop there for you or anything like that. I'm literally going to go off of OneDrive again, like I've been doing, and I'm going to be talking about VR design a little bit. That's the second part of the lecture, which is, okay, so now we've talked about some, I know it's pretty hot in here. We've talked about VR heuristics on Thursday a little bit, VR play heuristics, and we're going to talk about a little bit about design. Okay, that's happening on Thursday, okay? And then your stand-up meeting. So that's one thing. In your on Thursday, I'm going to make another exercise. There's going to be a couple exercises this week instead of one. On Thursday, I'm going to make you hand in your backlog, a snapshot of your backlog and your sprint backlog, two separate things, separately for Thursday. Okay, so that means that I'm actually going to create a spot up on Blackboard where you can hand these things in. A snapshot could be a snapshot like as in a picture. You could also hand it in as a PDF, whatever you want to, but it's one submission per group. Yes.
Oh, I just submitted my backlog using the last Dropbox. You know?
Wonderful. So I'll just get you to do that again, right? So that way everyone, so you get your mark, right? So that way everyone's got their participation marks.
Okay.
Some people may not have done that. Okay, but if you did it already, you're ahead of the curve. You're going to be fine for Thursday, right? And I just want to look at it with you, right? So I may have you make adjustments. That's all I'm saying. Yes.
About the user stories, do they have to have a very thorough description of what they are concerning about, to have like the main scenario and then alternate scenarios?
No. All I'm looking for user stories is something that looks like this. As a user, as a player, as a programmer, as a developer, as a whatever, I want to do this, whatever the thing you want, or I want to be able to do this, or I want to have this experience, or whatever it is, so that there's got to be a so that clause, so that this can happen, right? I know I'm kind of pigeonholing you. Sometimes they don't need the so that clause at all. And yes, you can be more detailed, but for now, I want you guys to adhere to that, to kind of have as a user, as a player, I would like to do this so that I can get this. What's the reason why you're doing, why are you doing this feature, right? And I'm looking at that for each of your backlog items. So it might be a long list, right? That's fine. I'll look at them with you guys, and we'll kind of go over some of those user stories. I want to be able to see the user stories with you. Also, it would be nice to have, guys, please pay attention just a little bit longer for this part. I know it's administration. I know people hate it, but just people, just pay attention. I'm also looking for the approximate story points. If you're going to use story points, how long it's going to take, number of hours, maybe you're allocating hours if you're doing it that way. I want to know how difficult this particular story is. So I want you guys to have an idea of, if I say something like, I want to have a start menu. As a user, I'd like to have a start menu as an example that gives me choices to start the game, right? Or end the game, or options, however you phrase it. That could be an epic, actually. An epic being more than one user story. However you phrase it, I want you to kind of think about that. How long will it take you to make a menu, or your game, your developers to make a menu? And the menu might include items like user interface items. There might be some scripting items. There might be some other things in there. Is it going to take you 4 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours? Is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 5 difficulty? What is it? how are you doing this, your backlog? And there's different ways of doing that, right? So we'll talk about that on Thursday, okay? But I want to get a sense. If you don't have that information, we'll do it together. Okay, I'll go through it with you and I go, well, maybe this is a 1, or this is going to take 1 hour, 5 hours. And then let's do the same thing for your backlog for your sprint. So if your sprint says, well, after let's say Ricardo and I get together with his team, and then Ricardo says, well, my sprint is going to take 50 hours, right? That's crazy. 50 hours over a 2-week period. That's actual 50 hours, right? Who has 50 hours to allocate? That's total 50 hours with all your users, 6 people. Even that is too much. Maybe you only have 2 hours to allocate over the 2 weeks, right? Or 3 hours or 4 hours, however many hours. I mean, that's a lot. 4 hours extra on top of everything else you're doing. That's like 4 hours of homework over 2 weeks. It could be quite a bit combined with all your other courses. So we have to make sure that whatever you're building in your backlog is your first playable and produces a minimum viable product, right? That's not crazy. That might include placeholder assets, basic movements, those kinds of things. And that's what I'm looking for Thursday, okay? Any questions around that? All right, so administration done. That's Thursday stuff. All right, for today, I've put up a couple of links. One of them is, the first part is this GoogleVR setup stuff, all right? So in order for us to do GoogleVR, we're going to do a setup. It's going to take a bit of time. There are 2 parts to this, okay? One part of this setup is the actual setup for the install for Unity. You need the latest version of Unity. Even though it says 2017.4 is the minimum version, we're going to be doing things with VR for Oculus and Vive as well as this. 2017.4 is totally different than the version I'm using. It will mess you up. Please don't use 2017.4. Use the latest version, 2018.3 or whatever it is, okay? So please download that. The next part is when you download Unity, so please set that up in motion. I've given you the download page for Unity. It's here. So when you get to this point, please do not download Unity Hub. Okay? Unity Hub is the wrong option. Okay, why? Because it'll allow you to download more version of Unity than you need. All you need is 2018.3.4, whatever the latest version is, which is released as of February 1st. Okay, so we're all on the same page. Let's use the same version of Unity. This is okay, all right? As long as you download this one, you're okay with this one. But if you download Unity Hub, you're going to have a lot of other options. And when you launch Unity, it'll be different than my launch, right? So I don't want it to confuse you. That's all I'm saying. So please download this on this side. When you download it, I want you, just like it says here, at the minimum to select Unity itself, the documentation. There will not be standard assets anymore. They've removed those from the install. It's automatic, and it's inside of your folder directory. So this is not an option anymore. Example project, if there's an option like that, I don't think that's an option anymore. Don't install it. But you definitely need Android. It'd be nice to have an iOS build as well as WebGL. Those are the 3 that I want. If you have space, just click everything. It's just easier. If you're not sure, select everything. It's only 30 gigs or whatever. Let it go. And in 45 minutes or so, we'll come back to this. But this is the first install, so do that. Yes.
Change those after the installation?
No, you have to reinstall everything. So please do not download the minimum version for Unity with nothing in it. It's useless for you. You need to install at least these things. I recommend just click everything. It's okay, but you need to install Unity. I know it's hot in here. Any questions around this part? Part 1. This is going to take you, again, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the speed of the network, the machine. If you're using the machine in front of you, you have to go into admin as an admin user, local admin, if I'm not wrong. And I know Ricardo knows the password for that. I don't want to broadcast it live in my recording, okay? So guys, go ahead and do that. Install it on a machine. If you're using your own machine, was that? If you're using your own machine, that's better. If you're using your own machine, but it'll allow you the latitude to install whatever you want. You need some space to install Unity. And sometimes the machines in front of you, if you choose all options, there won't be enough space on the hard drive. So just at least if you have Android, that's important. The other thing I need you to do is, if you don't have this already, install Android Studio, okay? Yes, I know, it's a pain in the ass. So your machine in front of you should have it in Android Studio, but if it doesn't, or if you're using your own laptop, you need to have Android Studio. And the reason why I want you to have Android Studio in there is because we're going to use Android Studio as the SDK to kind of manage the SDKs in the system. Okay, so please do that. Yes.
Particular version of the Android Studio.
Well, Android Studio,
64-bit.
yeah, let me show you this. So if I go to Android Studio, this is my Android Studio. You can see that I have 17 packages that are ready to install and update, right? These are all my packages. If I don't install and update these packages, I'm gonna do that while we're during the time we're together. Notice it says like APIs for Intel Atom, for all this sort of stuff. I'm just gonna choose this and press accept and next, and it's gonna just do its thing. It's still installing. It's downloading like 2%. Notice it's like a gig, just there, just Android stuff, right? So I'm gonna let that go in the background, and that's why we're gonna do something else. Notice it's moving Android 19, API 21, API 24, 23. It's updating a bunch of things. And that's usually things like security updates and those kind of things that it's doing. Okay, so I'm just gonna let that go in the background. Where to get Android Studio, which is something I didn't talk about earlier. It's developer.android.com. And if you go to developer.android.com, one day when it actually responds to me.
By the way, why are we downloading?
Don't worry. I will let you know in a second. If you go to download, if you don't have this already, if your machine should have this in front of you already, right? But if you don't have this already, you want to download Android Studio. This one's the one, 33.3 for Windows 64-bit. It's 944 megs. And that's just not including any SDKs. If you don't have your Android Studio, we may need to tweak some stuff with Android Studio later on, chances are, for GoogleVR. But if we don't, it also carries, or it also controls all your SDKs. It's an easy way to control your SDKs through, for your Android APIs. So all your APIs have different versions, like API for your phone might be a different version than mine. You may have to upgrade it, right, if possible. The other thing is, like, there are minimum API versions that the software will run on, and you have to have those minimum versions installed on your machine in order for Unity to access them so that you can install and build on your phone. That's the answer. So that's why we need Android SDK, Android Studio as well. So please download this. I'm going to put this this link, which I forgot to put on our Slack channel. Here it is. And that's for Android Studio. Yes.
We just download 3.3, or we go download options and choose a bunch.
If you go to download options, it gives you a bunch of other things. I recommend just download 3.3. You don't need anything else other than 3.3 right now. Inside 3.3, you're going to have other things to download. Once you download and install Android, there's other things to include. Okay, but we're not there yet. Sorry, yes. Okay, so so it'll take you a while, and while this is working, I'm going to build a new version of Unity for us to start working with. I'm going to call this, I actually made another version called GoogleVR Demo A. We're going to make another one called GoogleVR Demo B. That's for you guys. I'm going to click Create Project. And again, my Unity project is going to be very bare bones. Yep. Yes. Yeah, we're going to use the same Unity version for all of our projects going forward. Sorry? Yeah. It's not going to mess things up. If it's 2018, you're okay. If you're working with something earlier, like 2017 or 2015, you're going to be in trouble, right? Because you're going to have to move those things over, or port them over, or rebuild your project, right? Well, it won't be in trouble. You just have to accept that you're going to have to update your project. That's all. All right, so I've built my basic Unity project. We're going to get back to this in a bit. So while we're waiting, I'm not going to wait for this to download and install. It's going to take 40 minutes. We're not going to do that. We're going to actually do some work in Blender today. So let's do this together. I want you guys to launch Blender, please. And There's going to be a bit of a challenge for Blender at the end of the day. I'm going to ask you to hand this in probably by next week. So I'll give you some time for this one. We're going to build a tower together in Blender. And what I've done is, on Slack, I've given you the image that I want you to download. It's the image of the tower I want you to build, this thing here, okay? Again, it is a standard thing that I kind of get students to do for the first time when it comes to hard surface modeling. I'm just going to move this over so we can see my entire screen. So we'll do the tower, and we'll talk about some additional tools today that we haven't used before in order for us to build out my tower a little better, okay? I'm just going to make this so you can see it on the screen. Sorry for those people watching at home, but this is what we're going to have to do today. Okay, and I'll just turn the lights down so you can see this thing. So here's Blender. Please bring up Blender while we're downloading and installing Unity in the background, right? Because in Android, maybe the Android Studio, I don't want to waste time. All right, so like I said, if you go to your Slack has this image. Please download this image. Yeah. The link to Slack? What do you mean? You haven't signed up for Slack?
I did, but I forgot the link.
Okay. It should be on. Hold on a second. I'll bring it up.
Yeah,
Okay, good. All right. So yeah. So if you go to Slack, you get your image. Okay. Now there's something we need to turn on. If you go to File, please do this with me. File, and you go to User Preferences. What we want to do is make sure that Add-ons is clicked. Add-ons, right? And what I want to do here is in the search bar, type in the keyword images. And notice that there's an option that comes up in your Blender called Import, Export, Import Images as Planes. Okay, if you don't have a check mark here, make sure there's a check mark applied. And then press Save User Settings, which will always allow you to do this thing. And then close this down. Okay, so that's the first thing. Are you with me?
Is that all you need to do with add-ons?
So far. Sorry. That is under File, User Preferences. And if you click on the Add-ons tab, and you type in the word images on the left, where there's the little magnifying glass for searching, it'll bring up Import Images as Planes. Please make sure you do that. Okay, and then when you've done that, press Save User Settings, and then click this Close button. All right, so we've done everything we need. So what I want to do is whenever we try and do some hard surface modeling, especially something like this, which is a building, we always want to use a reference. That's number one. Number one rule. And by the way, guys, if you do this exercise, you'll be closer prepared for your exam, which is coming up in week 7, where I will be testing you on some stuff for Blender. There might be some practical aspect of your test, as well as some multiple choice true false, right? So kind of a couple of things to do. And it's good to practice now and keep practicing in Blender so you're good with your test, which is coming up in the midterm. Okay, so again, I've got my scene in Blender here. I'm going to just turn off some of these items. I'm going to turn off my camera by pressing H, my light source by pressing H. I don't want to see those things, so I don't want them to kind of clutter my screen. They're there. We can get back to. We can see them again if I go here in the inspector, in the outliner, and press these little eyes on again. I can turn them off and on. We can also use Alt H to bring them back. Okay. Yes. So again, I go File. Sorry, the question was, where is it? You're going to take this on, this little check mark, right? And then just close it off. But please press Save User Settings so you don't have to do this again later. All right, number one. So what I want to do here is there's two ways to do reference images. One way is to import it as a plane. The other way is to actually have it as a background image. So I'm just going to put this over on the side here so you can see it. I'm going to press the N key to bring up the numeric transform. And I'm going to scroll down to where it has, where you can see background images. There's a background images link down here. See it? If you click on background images and click Add Image, and I'm hoping you put your image on your desktop somewhere where you know, and this is the image from Slack. Press Open, and then select your image. And my image is on my desktop. It's called 3D Tower, and I'm going to click Open Image. Now you don't see anything. You're like, wait, I don't see anything. You have to be in one perspective. So if I go to, how do I go to the front view? What's the key on the numpad? 1 to go to the front view. And how do I go into ortho mode, ortho instead of projection? How do I do that? 5. So if I hit the 5 key, now I can see my image, right? So my image is there. It's just an orthographic view. And you can see that I have an image of my tower. Again, we're going to use this as a bit of, to help us build our tower, we're going to use this little image, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into wireframe mode. Yes. Sorry, I can't hear you. Did I what? Yes, I went here, add image, and I clicked on the image that I want, which is a 3D tower, which I share with you on Slack, right? And then I'm leaving it as all views. And the way I'm seeing this is I went into, I was like something like this, and I went into front view with the 1 key, or you can also use view front, okay? And then I went to orthographic mode. Right now I'm in perspective mode. I want to go into orthographic mode, which is the 5 key, or you can go to view perspective orthographic, numpad 5, right? Those are the 2 options. I want to scroll in. I want to get rid of this thing for now and press the N key. And I'm going to try and hide this one just for myself so I can have more real estate for you guys. Press the T key. All right, so now you can see the image. I have my cube in the middle. It looks like it's a square because I'm looking at it in orthographic projection mode. And what I want to do here is grab this cube. So I'm going to right-click on the cube, and I'm going to move it over so that it's kind of overlaying on one face of the tower, like this. Notice that this reference image is not the best image. Normally when I want a reference image, I want a front view, a side view maybe, and maybe even a top view. If I have those 3 things, I have a better reference image than the one I have now. Yes? The 5 key. That would be on your numpad. Okay. Are you with me?
Kind of.
All right. So now that I have this, right, I'm going to press the Z key to go into wireframe mode. You can see now that it looks like this. It looks like I can see through it. Okay. If I zoom up or whatever, what I want to do is I want to stretch this cube so it kind of goes to the top and all the way to the bottom. All right. So let's do that. So I'm going to click the S key to scale, but I only want to scale across the Z axis. Immediately, I'm going to press the Z key. And what this does is it constrains my scaling on the Z axis only. I'm going to try and go up as far up the tower as I can. You can see that it doesn't quite meet the bottom, which means I'm just going to use the arrows to move it down a little bit, kind of something like this, and then scale it up again across the Z axis, right, until I'm approximately the size of my tower. Again, we're using the tower as a reference, not a great reference because of where we got it, but you might get images like this, and that's why I'm using it. All right, so now if I look at it, if I come out of here, you can see that the image, I'm just going to come out of ortho mode for a second. The image in wireframe looks approximately like a long, prism, like a, kind of a longer prism with the tower on the top. And now if we look at the tower object again, if I go press in 1 and then 5, to kind of see that tower, it's pretty symmetrical. That's one thing to note, right? It's symmetrical. So this side looks kind of like this side. There's a kind of a hole here, a hole here. The only thing that's not symmetrical is this door. That's right here. And we don't know what's on the other side or on the back, but we can probably guess that it's all like this on every side. All right, pretty much. So if that's true, we can probably use a mirror modifier, but I wanted to show you another way of doing, kind of building this out. So one way we can do this, and this is before we use images as planes. One way you can do this is, I'm just going to go back into perspective mode for a second, and I'm going to bring this up. I can use a Boolean modifier, to kind of chomp away, if you will, at this object. So I can use another object to remove pieces of this object. Okay. Sometimes that's a strategy when it comes to 3D modeling, right? We use a Boolean, and what I'm doing is I'm actually eating away or stamping out parts of the object with another primitive, okay? So let me show you how to do that. So again, in order for me to do that, I need another shape. So let's call this cube, let's rename this cube to tower. And let us add a new shape that we're going to use to remove things. Another cube, let's say, for now. Here's my other cube. And we're going to call this cube our Boolean. We're going to call this our B cube. Let's call this a B cube, Boolean cube, right? That we're going to use to remove parts of this other object. Now, if you notice right now, my cube, I can make this a little bigger. So if I scale my cube out in all directions, my cube is pretty big. And you can see that it intersects with the other one like this, right? So when I want to do a Boolean operation, what I really want to do is this. I want to do, there's three kinds of operations. I can do an intersection, I can do a union, or I can do a difference, right? Think about those kind of Boolean operations, right? So in order for me to make that happen, I'm going to right-click on the thing I want to modify, which is this tower, okay? That's the first thing. And then I'm on the right, you can see that there's this little wrench. Please click on the wrench. And underneath the wrench, there's this add modifier button or pull down. And I'm going to choose Boolean. Are you with me?
So, how do you switch between wireframe mode and solid mode?
Z key.
Okay.
And how do you add again?
Shift A.
Shift A.
Shift A inside the editor. If I go Shift A, I can add a mesh cube. Right? All right, so I'm going to go to again. So I've got my tower selected now, right? Not the modifier cube, but the tower, right? I'm going to click Add Modifier and then click Boolean. When I do this, I get this little menu here, and it's red. If it's red, it means it's not complete, right? What I can do now, notice the operation is intersect. I got to choose the object I'm intersecting with, which is my B cube, the one that I made right now. Notice that all it shows me is the surface area of the object that's intersecting with my cube, okay? The rest of the object is going to be destroyed. I don't want that. That's not the option I want. I want to choose difference. If I choose union, that means these two things will be combined. If I choose difference, that means that this part will be removed from this part, which is what I want. Once I have this operation, I can click Apply. And if I right-click on the modifier cube and pull it out, I have this chunk that goes right there, right? So instead of modifying things by hand, by going into edit mode and modifying it, this might appear at first to be a good option. And you might see some videos online that does this. If you do tutorials on Blender, there's bad things and good things about this. The good thing is you can quickly create the shape that you want. The bad thing about this is it actually creates additional geometry in edit mode that you have to fix. Let's talk about that.
So you did a Boolean add mod to the tower, add modifier.
Can we do it again?
Yeah, it's because mine is.
All right, so I went here to the tower itself, right? I clicked on this little wrench icon, and then from there I choose Add Modifier Boolean, and then under Boolean, under the object where it says Object, I want to choose my object, which I've named B cube.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to choose B cube, and then instead of intersect, I want to choose difference, and then click Apply. And when I do that, if I pull this away, or
Okay.
I pull this away, right? And you can see that this is there. All right, now I want to right-click. Let's inspect what this looks like, okay? So in edit mode, what does this look like now? If I press edit mode, so tab into edit mode, you can see that I'm pretty good, right? I mean, it's created some shapes that are in here. It's like, looks like they're quads here, here, and here. But what about this one? What the heck is going on there? Is this okay? Like, remember we talked about this a little bit. Is this a quad? This thing here, this face. And if I go into face select mode, so if I press Control Tab and go into face select mode and click this face, is this a quad? What is a quad? Is this a quad? No, this is some kind of, polygon, right? It's another polygon. And we don't want this thing, right? We don't want this polygon here like this. We want a quad. And the way to do that is, remember what quads are. I'm just going to draw this up for you. So imagine if when we talk about quads, what I really mean is, let's bring up the something bigger like that to draw with. And let's suppose that the quad looks like this. You can see that the quad has 4 verts, right? So if I was going to draw the verts, and just by making some squiggles, so I got a squiggle there, squiggle there. These are the verts, right? You got 4 verts on the quad. This is a quad. And why is this good? Because I can split this quad in 2 and make triangles, right? And that's what your program will do. Your program will try and triangulate your faces and then try to understand how to render them in 3D. You don't have this stuff happening, then what's going to happen is, imagine if I have that weird other polygon, right? It's going to cause a problem, right? So, and an example of that would be, now let's think about another shape. So if I had another shape like the one we drew, so let me just go back to this, and let's just draw some shapes. Let's say I got this one, and let's say I got something like this, and this is kind of a shape that we might get in Blender, right? And this might be the face, one of the faces in Blender. Is this okay? Think about this face, right? How many vertices do I have on this shape? Is this a quad? No, it's not a quad because it has more than 4 vertices, right? And again, if I was to draw the vertices, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. These are all the vertices, and you can get the picture if you kind of mark the other ones. So I need to make these quads, and one of the things we can do is kind of subdivide it like this. I can subdivide it this way, and 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 then I have quads. Right? There's a quad here, right? And I have a quad here and here and here. There's all quads. But guess what? We've just increased our geometry, but we have 4 quads here instead of, 5 quads instead of 1, right? And now if we were going to render these things, this more complex shape, they would be kind of triangulated. Let's say something like this, right? Where the program would triangulate them, make triangles out of all of them, right? And all these triangles are going to be rendered in Unity or your favorite program, Unreal or whatever, right? Or even in your OpenGL project, right? So we want to triangulate. We want to be able to create quads so that the 3D program or even your own custom OpenGL program can easily triangulate the objects you bring in, okay? Otherwise, you're going to have weird reflections, weird shadows. Your program may not render it. The object probably may look like a face is missing. There's all kinds of stuff that it'll try and do. Depending on the program, it'll try and solve the shape as best as it knows how to do, right? And that you don't want to leave that stuff to chance. You want to be able to model something where you know that it's going to render something reasonable. And also from a deformation perspective, later on when we get into organic modeling, this is definitely what we want to do. We want to stick to quads and not triangles. We want to actually avoid triangles too, because you can't divide a triangle in 2 without creating another polygon, right? So be careful. So that's this. So going back to this then, we don't have a quad here at all. What we have is this big, weird polygonal shape, right? And we don't want that. We want to divide this in quads. So how would I divide this shape into a quad? How do I do that, right? So think about this for a second. There's a couple strategies. One, I could subdivide this right here and create another edge here, but then I'd have a kind of a floating vertex right here on the edge, which means I would have to cut it this way too, right? In order for me to create this whole area, I'd have to create additional cuts, right? So that's one thing I'd have to do. And I'd have to do the same thing down here. And we can do that manually or automatically. If I press Control R, yeah?
Right. Well, you can cut it without creating additional.
Is there a way?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. You can kind of cut it this way,
yeah.
right? But and that's another way to do it. I can do that. So if I cut it this way, then I don't have a cut, and I can cut it this way as well. So if I don't want to create additional vertices, I can just do cut like this across the face, and then press Enter. So I use the K key for that. So I kind of use the K key. Looks like a knife. I take this vertex, connect it to this vertex, and then press Enter. And now I have quad. Which I was going to show you another way of doing it. But this is definitely a way to reduce vertices. The other way I was going to show you increases the number of vertices. All right, so you can see that now I have a shape that only has a limited number of quads, which isn't so bad. Okay, but what if I continue with my Boolean operations? So what if instead of using a cube, I use something else, which you can do, right? So instead of my cube, let's add another shape. So I'm going to add a sphere. Okay, I want you to think about this now. I want to cut a sphere in here in the middle, right? So that's going to be a weird shape, right? How will this be something that I can modify? Is this going to cause me a lot of problems, right? Well, first of all, let's rename the sphere to B sphere, just so we know it's a Boolean sphere that we're going to get rid of later, right? And we're going to right-click on the shape we want to cut out, right? And we're going to go to Add Modifier, Boolean. Again, I'm not going to choose intersect. I want difference, and I want to choose my B sphere. There's my B sphere. You can see how it's being cut on both sides, right? As it's penetrating. But take a look at this side. This side looks like there's no cut. This is something you have to be wary of, right? So maybe it's going to come through, maybe it's not. You got to be wary of this. And we're going to have a big problem. Can anyone predict what the problem is going to be for the sphere before we actually do the cut? I'm going to have, yeah, a billion vertices. I'm going to have all kinds of vertices in here because I'm doing this, right? So be careful when you select the object. I'll show you what this looks like. I'm going to click apply, and then I'm going to take this sphere and remove it. And you can see now that I've got a weird number of vertices in here. So there's this. It's easier for me to do this for the inside. So the inside is actually cool. Maybe if I wanted this spherical shape on the inside, because that's what I wanted, that's cool. But what the heck is going to happen on the outside? That is bad. And let's go and show you what this looks like. So again, if I right-click on my tower and go in there, you can see that I have a ton of vertices to solve on the outside. Guys, there's no automatic solver for vertices. Okay, just letting you know. That means you're going to have to go through here, and for every one of these verts, right, on both sides of the cube, on this side, you're going to have to figure out how to do quads on every single one of them. And notice it's already tried to do some by itself. Look, it's already tried to do some of them on this side. Unsuccessfully, mind you, right? But it's tried to do this, which means you're probably going to do something like this all the way around. Not a great solution. So be careful with what you're cutting. Try primitive objects like cubes first, and then you can modify them easier. Doing something like this with the sphere is a neat idea, but can cause you a pile more work. And guys, if you do this and you try and modify it and you spend lots of time, sometimes, I'm sorry to say this, and I know it's terrible for me to tell you this, it's better to start over. I know. You may think it's like, no, it's not. I've done all this work. I don't want to start over. Or you may want to try and undo. And sometimes undoing just doesn't work, right? It doesn't go back far enough, or maybe you undo stuff you want, right? So sometimes it's better just to go back and start over. So I'm going to undo these things. I'm going to go back and undo, right? And if you notice, as long as I'm in the right mode, I can undo. So now I don't have this sphere happening here, right? I keep going back. I undo the modifier. I'm undoing. I'm good, right? That modifier is undone. And let's keep undoing because I don't want to do this modifier either, right? You can see I'm not doing this modifier anymore. Okay, and I'm not doing this modifier, and we're good still, right? We have this original shape of this tower. So you might be tempted to do this. That's why I showed you this piece, just so that way you know this is one way of doing it, okay? But what makes sense to me, I'm just going to get rid of this cube. So I'm going to keep on doing until I get rid of the cube. What makes sense to me is to cut this shape in quarters because of our reference object. Our reference object looks like this, right? And if you notice again, you can see that it's pretty much the same on all sides except for the door, right? So even this part here, if you actually look at the bottom here, these look like they're also symmetrical on the right and left of our reference, and even the roof somewhat looks symmetrical everywhere else. That's going to be more difficult to do. Your homework is going to be do the tower. Okay, this is your homework. I want you to make the tower. I want you to texture the tower. All right, this is practice for your test. Okay, I'm just letting you know. If you don't do this, then when it comes to your test, it's going to take you way too long. I'm going to make it open internet and everything else on your test. It won't matter. It won't help you, right? Because you won't have time. Yes.
So not all the details like those.
Yep. I want you to try and do as much as you can. All right.
The supports for chimneys.
Yep. As much as you can. As much as you can. All right. If you don't get it done, don't worry about it. It's practice. That's what I want you. But try and do as much as you can and show me. We're going to show this. I want you to show this to me later on. next week sometime. Yes.
Is it hollow from the inside?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So don't worry about doing anything inside. I'm not expecting you to actually go into your tower or anything. The only challenge is in here. When you look through the windows, you might see nothing, and that's okay. But think about these windows, how to do them. There's a couple of solutions here. If you notice that the windows look like they've also been textured, that's okay. And the texture is not great, by the way, right? It's actually been modeled. Like this is a model. It's not like a picture of an actual tower that's been created, like that was done. So, you know, take a look. So this is one way of looking at an image, reference image. The other way is looking at it with as a plane. All right. So we did this kind of reference image with which is a background image, like this. But let's say sometimes we want to model in 3D sometimes too. And we won't see that image, but I want to see the reference image. How do I do that? I can go like this. I can go File, because we have that add-on, Import Images as Planes. See that this option here, File, Import Images as Planes. And when I do this, it actually asks me for the image, which I have on my desktop, like before. And it's going to appear wherever your 3D cursor is, right? So if it's here, it's going to be there. If I pull it out, you can see now that the image is here. I want to flip this so I can see it, because, again, I want to look at this from my front view normally, right? So I want to kind of rotate this image across the z-axis 90 degrees. So rotate across the z-axis 90 degrees. I just type 90. So R, then Z. R for rotate, Z for the axis, and then 90, and then press Enter. And what this does is it rotates this image across the Z-axis 90 degrees. And then I want to scale this image so I can see it. I can't see it right now. Why? Because we are in solid mode shading. We want to go to Material. And now you can see I see the tower way down here. And one thing to note is you want to turn on Shadeless. So if I go to the Material tab for the tower image and click on Shadeless, I can now see the tower brightly. Okay? Material tab for the tower, Shadeless. Okay? And what I can do is I can make this tower bigger by scaling it up, right? And I can see it. It's actually a plane, which is two-sided, by the way, that I can use as a reference. So whether I'm in front view this way or I'm in front view this way, you can turn off or turn on objects. So I can move this tower aside, let's say, so I can see the tower this way, and if I don't want to see this tower, I can just turn it off, right, as a reference, right? But I can also look at the tower this way if I want to do modeling in orthographic mode. Okay, so I brought this in so you can see it, and this is my tower reference. Now, but the problem is that even my cube that's now a tower, it's hard to work with because I've got shadows. One strategy is using lighting, so I can add another light. So I have a lamp right now. Let's bring that lamp back on. It's over here. I could Shift D and duplicate this lamp and bring it over on this side so that I have multiple lamps, and then Shift D again, bring it over here on this side. I can make it shadeless, but shadeless is the problem with shadeless is it'll make it too bright. So this is one option. And then this side here is all messed up. You don't need to see your tower from every angle, but it's nice to have light everywhere. So Shift V, I can kind of bring that over here, and then adds light to the scene. You can do that, and that might be good. The other way to do this is to right-click on the tower itself and click shadeless, but it makes it white. And in order for you to make use of this, you can choose this diffuse color and bring it down a notch, so you can actually see the tower maybe as a gray object, right? It's up to you. I'm going to use the lamps this time around. Earlier today, I used shadeless, and it did cause a few problems. Okay, so here's my tower. I want to start modeling. What do I do? What do I start with first? What do you recommend? Well, I know it's symmetrical, right? So it might be good to do a mirror modifier. But in order for me to do that, I'm going to go into, now watch this. When I press the Z key for wireframe, everything goes wireframe, including my reference, right? So that's kind of something that when I go into the 1 key in the 5 view, I see that it is, I can see my background image. That's why I have both. If you notice that this image here is, it's just an object like this. I'm going to tab into edit mode, so I can see that this whole thing is now editable. I'm going to press the T key to bring my toolbar back up, right? So the T key toggles my toolbar off and on, like we talked about before. And what I want to do is I want to split this in quarters. So the first thing I want to do is on the left, I want to click subdivide. Again, while my object is in edit mode, right, by pressing the tab key, I want to click subdivide, and it has to be completely selected or highlighted like this to get it done. If it's not, let's say, for example, it looks like this somehow, and it's not highlighted or selected, you can press the A key to select all. Okay? And then everything is selected. Now, if I press the subdivide button, it subdivides it in quarters. Okay? All I do is I want to subdivide this once. Are you with me? So now I want to remove geometry from the left side and from the back side in order for me to mirror both ways. Okay, so I'm going to actually mirror twice in this way. All right, so again, I'm going to go to the front side, front view. If I want to not see this right now because it's bugging me, I can turn it off. Again, I can bring the N key up or the numeric transform. I can go down to where it says background images, turn it off, so I don't have to see that for now, right? And I can kind of come in here and deselect all now that I have this object. I'm going to give myself more geometry, turn this, or real estate, turn this off and turn this off, right? So like you can see what I see. And then in the middle here, you can see that there's some vertices on the left, vertices on the right. What I want to use the box select mode by pressing B, the B key. And what this does is it allows me to just select the vertices that I want to delete.
Is there a key to deselect all?
A key. A key selects all, A key deselects all.
Oh.
Okay, in Blender 2.8, which is the new version of Blender, is a different workflow.
So I just need to point and click with the B key.
The B key, and then left click and drag.
B or B?
B is in Bob.
B is in Bob.
B is in beta.
Okay.
All right. All right. So again, you see that I've done this, right? I've selected this left side, but not the middle. I haven't. So if you did this, if you made a mistake and did this, that's not what I'm looking for. All right. You need to do this. Okay. And then I want to press the X key, and I want to delete vertices. When I do that, if I select delete vertices with the X key, I have this. And let me do that one more time for those people who are following. Again, I have these things selected. I want to press the X key, which brings me a menu up, and I have choices of doing different things. I want to choose vertices. And then I delete this part. Are you with me? All right, I want to go to the right view now. So I want to press the 3 key to go to the right view, and I see this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All 4 sides of the tower are actually symmetrical. So
Pretty
it
much.
makes sense to remove side walls as well and just work on a single plane and then duplicate it 4 times.
No, that's way different. It takes too long. I like your thinking, but I'm going to show you a different way that's easier. So the question was, do I want to remove all 4 sides, just work with one single plane? I don't recommend that. I recommend, because then you have to put everything together again. And that's another whole thing, like adjusting the plane so that they meet and everything else. This way, it's a little easier. So again, I've gone from the front view, which is 1 key, to the right view, which is a 3 key. And now I'm going to select the right side, not the left side. So I'm going to go B for box select. I'm going to select this part here on the right. So now I've got this part. And I'm going to press X to delete the vertices again. And what I've been left with is something that looks like this. Are you with me? So you can see that I only have this part, only one corner of the entire object, because it's completely symmetrical in all ways, approximately. And we can turn the symmetry off later, right? For now, it's symmetrical.
So it's just a corner.
Yeah, just a corner. Are you guys good? Are you guys with me?
No.
No? Sorry?
No. I was doing this.
Want me to go back? Undo?
Just how, so we subdivided the whole thing into corners, basically?
Yeah. Do you know how to do that?
Yes.
All right, so once you're here and you've subdivided everything into the corner, right? Now what I want to do is I want to go to modifier, so the wrench. I want to add modifier, and I'm going to add a mirror modifier. When I add a mirror modifier, it only adds, I don't know if you can see this, but it only adds this part. Why? Because the x-axis is the only thing checked. You want to also check the y-axis. And when you do that, it looks like it's a complete object. If I take it out of wireframe and go back into solid mode, you can see that. So again, if I only click the, if I have nothing clicked at all you see is this part. If I click the X, it mirrors this on the x-axis. If you click the Y, it mirrors it also on the y-axis. If you click the Z, it does nothing because it is already mirrored that way.
Yeah.
But you know, that's one thing to do. Also, you want to turn on clipping, so please turn clipping on.
What is that?
What clipping does is in the middle, right? As an example, if I take this object and I move it away, if I turn clipping off, you can see I have an option to do this. But if I turn clipping on, right, then it won't allow me to do that at all. It'll actually connect these vertices in the middle, which is what I want. Okay? So please have clipping turned on. All right, so again, you can see that I've got this object, and now I have control. Anything I do on the right side happens on the left and on the back, which is, again, the most symmetrical way of modeling, right? Because I'm actually doing purely mirror on all sides. Now, there's some advantages and disadvantages to this option. Let's turn off all the lights because they're bothering me. They're kind of in my view. So again, I can turn off all the lights here like this, or just select the lights and press H. It's up to you how you want to do it. All right, so there's my object. And I'm going to go into perspective mode so you can see it for a second. It looks like this. And I'm going to go back into material mode so I can see my tower. So this is what I want to do. I want to make this tower that looks like this. So you can see that in the tower picture, I've got these legs here. And in the tower, I also have a bit of a ridge that's right here. Let's do the ridge first. So again, knowing that I'm going to, I'm just orienting this by using my navigation controls. I want a cut that goes up here. That's what I want. So to create this ridge here, I want a cut that kind of comes across here to give me additional geometry, right? But I already have one. It's right down here, right? I'm not using this right now because this is part of my subdivision, right? Let's move this cut up here. And the way to do that is I'm going to Control-Tab into Edge Select mode. I went Control-Tab into Edge Select mode. So now I'm selecting edges. And I'm right-clicking and Shift-right-clicking to select this edge. Notice I don't have to do it on this side because it's mirroring. And what I want to do is I want to pull this edge up approximately to where I think on my image it's the right way. So actually I've moved my cut up to here. Okay? So now that I've done this and I've got my cut like this, and again, let's take a look at the image. It's not bad. It's probably about right. Again, I'm eyeballing it. I'm not measuring. If you really want it to be accurate, you could measure. You could create another image, maybe you want to draw it by hand or whatever. We're not going to do that. I'm going to press Control-Tab and go into Face Select mode now. And I'm going to select these faces, just these faces. Okay? And what I want to do with these faces is I want to extrude. Now, we did an extrusion example last week. All I'm going to do is last week we did Blender. I'm going to press E to extrude and then press Enter. E to extrude and then Enter. And what this does is it creates additional geometry, an additional face actually, on top of these faces. Okay? So now if I choose this face, just the face on the y-axis, and pull it out like this, I get this. And if I choose this face on the x-axis and pull this out, I get something that looks like this. So you can see that I got the tower that kind of has a bit of an edge. Maybe too much edge compared to this one. If I want to bring those back in the same to make it closer, it looks like more of like this kind of edge. And again, you want to be symmetrical here. I'm just eyeballing it for now. But you can see that as we come closer, that looks a little closer of what it should be. May not be exactly perfect, but that is what I've done with extrusion. Are you with me? Remember that I'm recording this. You can always look at this again, but it's good to kind of pay attention to see if you can remember how to do all this on your own. All right, and I want to do the last part before I let you guys do it on your own. I'm just showing you techniques that you can use with the mirror, okay? So notice on the bottom of the tower here, we have these legs. Let's do that part next. Now, I don't have cuts to do that. I don't have geometry here that I can extrude down on the bottom. I need to either subdivide or add geometry on the bottom of my tower, probably around right here. One way I like to do it is use Control-R or something that allows me to add a loop. So if I press Control-R, right, you can see that if I go to the right, my right side, it actually makes a loop cut up here. If I go to the bottom, it does a loop, a cut this way, a vertical cut. So this one does a horizontal cut, This one does a vertical cut. I haven't cut yet. I'm just deciding where I'm going to cut. But first step is Control R. So Control R, and then I can decide which cut I'm going to do. I'm going to start cutting from the bottom first.
So Control R uses which tool?
It's like the loop cut and slide tool. That's what it does. All right. So I'm there.
Sorry, what? How did you do that?
Sure, I'll undo that. So again, I press Control R, and then if I go to the right side, I have a horizontal cut. If I go to the bottom, I have a vertical cut. So I want to kind of choose the bottom, and then I can move it around. I move it closer to the right side here. And then if I kind of change my perspective a little bit, let's just do it this way this time. And if I press Control R, I guess I'm just eyeballing it again. It's not perfect. Like you'd have to really measure this to be right. I'm not measuring. I'm just doing my eye. But just to save time. And now you can see that I have two vertical cuts, and I want to make a horizontal cut somewhere around right here. So I can press Control R again, and then select a horizontal cut. I want to bring it somewhere down here, around there. Now, again, notice that when I do the vertical cuts, it cuts right through the entire object, which is good because it creates quads everywhere, right? So I don't have to worry about that. But it's bad in that it gives me geometry, extra geometry everywhere, right? So you don't want to do this too much because notice I'm not doing like subdividing. I didn't subdivide it a bunch of ways because that would be like way too much geometry, right? So again, I'm going down in here. And I've got this other cut here, and I know I want to extrude these legs because the legs kind of look like, if you notice on the right-hand side here, they look like only this edge. So I want to kind of make a leg here, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into Control-Tab into Face Select mode. I'm going to select these two faces on the edge of my tower. Yes?
Just can we actually shift the vertices on top closer to the corner and then extrude?
Sure, you can do whatever you want. I'm just showing you the easier way to do it. Do it my way.
Is it still possible just to like if I go back to Control R, is it possible to edit those cuts that we made?
Yeah, move them up and down. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, move them up and down.
Yeah.
Just for more detail.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can add more
Okay.
cuts. You can add left cuts. You can do whatever you want, right?
Okay, sounds good. Right.
But I'm showing you just one way of doing it. This is, by the way, this is not the only way to do this. There's many ways to do the same thing. So I've got this thing here, right? This thing I want to extrude again. I'm going to press E to extrude and enter, and you can see that I have I've got additional geometry, additional faces on both sides, just like I did before. I'm going to select one face and pull it out, and I'm going to choose the other face and pull that out, right? So you can see now that I have kind of like legs on the bottom, but they're not exactly what I wanted. I want to taper them a little bit, and I can just choose one face and press rotate across the x-axis, R and then X. So I kind of can rotate this face a little bit this way. And I can do the same thing with this one. I can rotate this one across the y-axis, rotate across the y-axis, so the R and then Y. I can rotate this across the y-axis, so kind of do something like this, all at the same time. And
What was the key to extrude?
E. E to extrude and then press enter right away. And now you can see that I have my shapes. Now this is cool. I've got quads here and quads here. And on the bottom, you can't really see it, but I've got quads everywhere on the bottom as well. You just can't see it because of the light. But the great thing is everything is quads, right? And it's totally something that we can use in Unity or in other programs, okay? So this is kind of step one. If I was going to continue with this, and I don't have a lot of time, so I want to go back into the GoogleVR stuff, and I want to make some kind of window like this on every part, I can do that too. And what I would probably do is not use a Boolean. I'd probably go into the middle here, make a couple of cuts, cut, right? Like this. So let's say I use cuts. So here I have a loop cut and slide. Let's say I want the window somewhere around the middle, like up here somewhere, and maybe another cut. I'm kind of defining the area that I want to modify in the cut. Let's say in here, and let's say I want to make it, I want to move this, I can also move it after the cut, so I can move it up. And notice that there's like a little area there, or maybe I want to move this down. I can do that too. And if I'm not happy with this, where this is, I can kind of go into head mode, and just move this down by just shift right clicking those areas and bring those down to where I want it. Let's say I want it down here. And I want it, let's say if I want another cut, I can do that too. Control R. I can add a vertical cut. Let's say I want it. And let's say I want to bring it like closer into the middle like this, right? So I want to make a window that looks like this, but it's also going to be on this side, right? So I can do that. And notice that the cut that I make on this side, once I select it, is going to be appearing on this side. Be careful on this side. See, notice on this side there's no cut. Because remember, it's mirroring as much as possible, right? So now what I want is this area here. I want to press Control Tab, go into face select mode, select this face. Notice there's no face on this one, right? And inside this place right here, I want to eliminate this face by pressing X. And I want to kill this face. So once I do that, you can see that the face is eliminated right in the middle, but not on the sides. So I have to do something similar on the sides. I can do the same thing. Control R. I can do this kind of one of these and bring that into, again, I'm just eyeballing it. You'd measure it.
Just extrude inwards the face.
I could do that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do something else. So let's say there's like lots of options, like tons. You can extrude inward. You can do a bunch of stuff. So if I did that, let's just do what you said, but let's just do the, I'm going to do that cut. I got this thing here. Let's put that cut back in there before I extrude, so I have both sides. There we go. So now what you're suggesting is extruding. That's not a bad idea. Let's do that instead. So Control in, so you can see it's a bit of it adds the geometry for this part. It kind of also adds something in here, which is not really a hole. I could then eliminate them. I can delete it now, right? If I want to. So I could texture it. I can make it black. I can use texturing to make that part black so it looks like it's a hole. But if I want to see through, then I'd have to delete these faces. So if I delete this face, right? So I delete this face now, and now you can see that I've got a little bit of a lip there, which is much better than what I would have had to do that by myself. Now it's done for me. So that's where the advantage is. What you said was an advantage. So again, E to extrude, enter, and then I can push that in. Again, I'm just eyeballing it, and then I can just delete that face, and you can see that I've got part of my geometry right there. You can keep going. Your job is to figure out how to do the rest. Remember that you also have control over each of the verts. So let's say, for example, I wanted to make this window a little bit more rounded. I mean, I can literally just take this vert, Control Tab into vertex select mode. And if I'm smart about it, I can select this vertex, and then press the G key and kind of, make the window any shape I want, right? So you can do a lot of really weird things. Now notice I did it also in this way, which is not what I wanted. So I can undo that change. But let's say I press the G key and I press G twice, so GG. Now you can see that it works across only the edges that I want. If I press G and G again.
Is there a way, so in Unity you can select like 2 at a time of directions? So like you can select those?
Yeah, no, you can't do that so easily. No, you can do that with numeric selections. If I bring this up and when I'm selecting, I can bring up 2 faces. When I select, I can bring up both. When I'm modifying it, I can try and modify both ways. But for now, yeah, it's only 1 at a time. All right, so I mean, you can make your shapes whatever you want. So again, if I kind of select these 2 edges here, or these 2 things, sorry, these 2 right here. So I've selected this one and this one, shift right click. And then if I press G and then G, so 2 Gs, I can kind of bring this in, or I can bring this down or up, whatever, to make the window whatever shape I want. Now it only does this one and it does the back one, but not the sides one because I didn't do that. Okay, but you can see what there's lots and lots of options. So if you wanted to do a shape that looks more like, let's bring that back up. This, you can do multiple cuts, right? And move your edges around just like that, your vertices, until you have more of a rounded shape for the window, and then it would mirror it on the other side, right? So that might be a thing to do. So I leave it to you guys, yeah.
Are we allowed to add extra primitives? So
Yep.
like, for instance...
Yeah, I'll leave it to you. I'm not asking you just to modify the shape. I want you to make the tower. You may want to make the roof separate, right? You may want to make other parts separate, and you may want to try using the Boolean modifier in certain instances, certain places. Like for example, for the door, right? You may want to, Boolean that out with, let's say, a cylinder or something, right? And you can remember, you can cut the cylinder down into less verts, less shape, so that you can put it in the so so it won't be as many of those cuts, right? That you do. So options you can do to make this happen. Yes.
How did we end up with a hollow inside?
All objects are hollow inside.
Oh.
Right? All objects, right? So when you remember when you make a quad, all you're doing is literally, or a cube, all you have is like a bunch of quads put together, and there's nothing inside the cube. It's the same in Unity, by the way, in Unreal. Nothing is filled in, right? There wouldn't be anything solid because there is nothing solid unless you define it. Like unless you make the inside, right? It's empty, right? Which is crazy. Why would you do that? But if you wanted to, you could, right? Think about, I don't know if you guys know about Minecraft, but Minecraft is all empty inside, right? It's all empty inside. And what it uses is when you dig down, it creates the extra geometry for you, right? But actually, when you're digging down, unless it's a cave system, which already is hollowed out for you, right? Literally, when you're digging down, there is nothing there. Like it's completely empty. And then as you're digging down, it adds geometry, it adds the quads that you need. Because otherwise, imagine if you had, I don't know, 1 billion blocks through the entire biome. Like it's too much, right? So it doesn't want to do that.
That actually, so there's a pretty famous glitch in Minecraft that if you're lagging enough,
you'll see it. Yeah,
you can see through the world and find cave systems because it's only rendering the far side of the cave
right.
system.
That's right.
And not any geometry that you would actually see behind ground.
So it's very, very nice. Very cool, and it's all mathematical, which is cool, and it's using it for the best rendering possible. So again, your job, I'm going to put a little discussion board up, is going to be for you to complete the tower by next week. So next week to get together on Tuesday, I want to take a look at it. You can submit it next week, and it'll be for participation marks and practice. Really, it's going to be another practice for you guys for your test, which is what I want to try and prepare you for your test. Because guys, you're going to have to model something on your test, something as simple as this. Maybe simpler than this, right? Because this might be too complex.
So this
all right?
is due next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday. Okay, so give you some time to play with it and practice. Okay, so let's stop this. I need to get back to the Unity stuff now, so we're kind of doing a couple things at once. If I get back to Unity, again, you can see that maybe my Unity install is completed. And let's take a look at my poor Android Studio stuff. Is it completed? I might have some tasks that were not completed. It says an exception in plugin Android support 42 minutes ago occurred. Oh, wonderful. So it's got a bunch of events that keep on having to go. I can click on one at a time, as an example to select them all. But you can see that I've got a bit of an issue, kind of pulling down this one object. So anyways, and it's probably because of the volume of stuff that I'm doing. But you can see that I need to update all this stuff. Okay, let's continue with the Google VR stuff. So Google VR, remember we went to here. I know this is kind of a weird video that I'm doing because I'm kind of did Blender and then went back to video. But I need to do this because otherwise we're going to have multiple videos. Yes. It's what? An error? Okay, fix it. You have to. What's the error? You have to. You're the developer, right? You have to re-download it maybe. So yeah, I know it's a lot. In terms of I'm doing this all at once, but remember that it is recorded. You can always go back and try this again. I'll come to you afterwards, and I'll help you out. But what's the error? Just curious. Error, eh? Yeah. And are you doing it on the machine in front of you or on your machine? That's weird. Okay, I'll have to come look at your stuff later. All right, so we've got this environment set up, and now we've got to start off with this package. So one thing we need to go is to the releases page. I put this link on the Slack page, and the releases page basically shows that we want to download this SDK for Unity version 1.190.1, right? And this is the Unity package we're going to download. So we're going to click on this download, which I've already done today. You can see that I've downloaded the package, right? Just the first one, this one here, not these ones. And what this package is the package that we're going to use for Unity. We're going to import this package in Unity and start building things with Google VR. Okay. Now, just for your information, if I go back, you may have thought to do something with Google Daydream. Yeah, that's cool, but you need a Daydream-ready phone, which is one of, when it comes up. What was that? They're pretty modern new phones, right? So, I mean, it's my internet is lagging. I'm not even sure if I'm still broadcasting. Am I still broadcasting? Looks like I'm pretty good. All right, but yeah, so if I go back to this, you can see that the latest phones for this are the Pixel 2, for Google Pixel 2 and up, probably. The S8, I have an S7, right? If you have an S8, you can do Google Daydream. Zenfone, the LG V30 and up, and a bunch of other ones, right? But there's some phones that will not do it. Like I got an S7, it will not produce enough horsepower for me to use Google Daydream, okay? So I'm not going to do Google Daydream. We're going to use Google Cardboard instead, right? So that we can support more phones. So again, if I go to the release pages and I download my SDK, I have the SDK. And in Unity now, let's go back to Unity. And let's see if I can make Unity so it scales to your screen. Sorry, because I'm projecting. The projection is a little bit smaller in class than it would be, when you're seeing it at home. Sorry about this.
It's on the sidebar. Is that now? Weird.
Yeah, sorry about that. It is what it is. You're going to see extra room, and you're like, why is he not expanding it the whole way? It's because you guys can't see it here in class, right? All right, so here it is. And now I want to include my, I want to import my Google VR. Here it is, Google VR for Unity package. There's a couple ways to do this. I can just drag and drop it, or I can go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and choose the location where it's at. I have mine inside of my course information, which is course GAME2015. You might have it somewhere else. Here it is, right? You can also click onto it and press open. I'm going to show you how to do it by dragging and dropping, which is like just dragging and dropping. And what dragging and dropping does is equivalent to importing it. Unity will import the package, and it'll ask you what you want to import, like this. I want to import everything. Okay, so let's do that. Which
files?
What files? All right, so yeah, I want to go back to what I was showing you, which is this, Google VR for Unity, this one, the package. And it's still downloading and installing. As you can see, I've got my Unity package. Now, I also, if you notice here, I have a scene called Sample Scene. I'm not going to use this right now. I'm going to use the built-in VR scene eventually. But for now, let's follow the tutorial. So if you look at the tutorial, it tells you what to do. It says, okay, cool. It gives you these little scenes. So here's the next part. The next part is after we've installed the package, I want to go to the following settings. I want to go to File, Build Settings. So if I go to File, right, I go to Build Settings. Please do this with me, or else you won't have a working scene. And I want to select, slow down. Are you with me?
Oh my God.
Supporting assets?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. You know what it is? I have a crazy machine. So my machine is like, I've got a 99 with 32 gigs of RAM and an SSD. Chances are it's going to be really, really fast. However, I mean, you can always follow the thing without me. If you go to the page that I showed you and you just follow the steps, it'll tell you what to do. Did you import all your assets yet?
It's importing. Yes.
Yay. Okay, so once you've done this, you want to go to File, Build Settings. All right. In File, Build Settings, you want to click on Android on the left. And you want to click Switch Platform on the right. Switch Platform. And what this will do is it will switch platforms from PC, Mac, and Linux to Android by itself, right? And this will take a bit of time. Probably more time for you than for me. And this is in the video where you would like fast forward and go to like when I'm done installing, right?
You never can edit your video.
I will not edit videos. I'm not a video editing person.
Just cut this part
Do you
out,
want to
know?
volunteer to edit my videos? You go ahead, man. I have no time for that. This is raw
would,
footage.
But your videos are like 2.5 hours.
Right.
I'm like, I can't.
What?
You don't want Jackson.
You don't want him to edit my videos. Yeah, well, I do
I'll
it.
add so many effects, buddy.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it. All right, so if you notice here, I've got my Android. I also have it detects my Samsung phone that I've plugged in. If you had a compatible phone, it'll show it to you, right? I'm gonna click all compatible devices for my run device.
I don't have that. That part is grayed out. What did I do?
Nothing. You just don't have. You haven't configured your phone properly. There's no phone, right? I've just got a phone attached to this thing. That's what it is. Okay. And then, okay, once I've done this, I've got Android. I want to go to player settings. And player settings will appear over here on the right. I want to scroll down all the way to where it says XR settings. So again, I went to player settings on the left. I clicked on, and I scrolled all the way down when I was in player settings to XR settings. Are you with me? I want to click on virtual reality supported. By the way, guys, once you turn this on, we're doing VR now. Okay. Like for Unity, it's like that easy, right? I mean, seriously, you're like, we're doing VR, right? Now, there's a lot of other stuff to do, but it's just like, this is the first step. And, you know, I talked to a professor friend of mine, and he said, like, that's okay, Tom. All you have to do is just click on that, VR supported, and you're good. Your class is over, right? It's not true. It's not true. This is just the first beginning of things. We've got so much other things to do. So next part is where it says virtual reality SDKs, we've got to click this little plus button. And now, because you've installed Cardboard, please just use Cardboard here. There's also None and Mock HMD, but we're going to use Cardboard. Keep the bit depth to 16-bit. All right, we want to keep 16-bit. We don't want to go beyond that. We don't want to turn anything else. Notice also that there's a thing that says AR Core supported. If you want to do an AR app as well as a VR app, you can choose one or the other or both. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep that off. You make mixed reality. We're not doing that. That's out of scope. Okay, that's the first part. Next part, we're going to go to other settings. And we're going to scroll down to where it shows us these identification. We're going to change our identification so it's a package that makes sense for us. This is in reverse DNS order, where we type in CA. I don't know, we'll call it George Brown. So let's say we all work for George Brown. And this is the Google VR Demo B, right? Now you can choose whatever name for this part. This is the name of your app that you put on the App Store. Okay, that's what it would be. And then notice the target API level, which right now shows me I'm in Jelly Bean. That's way too low. You need to be at least API level 24 is what I recommend. So go to 24. If you don't have this option, that means you have to install this with Android Studio, right? And that's why I recommend Android Studio. You have to install API level 24 and API level 19. Those are the two APIs that you need minimum. Okay, we'll go back to that next week. All right, that's two things. Next thing, once we have those two things in place, right, we also need to scroll all the way up to the top. And where it says default company, let's change that as well to George Brown. No spaces. And my product name is Google VR Demo B. That's good. Okay, so I need those things. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Let's close this up now, if you're with me. And if you click anything on the main scene, this little inspector will change back to a regular inspector that looks like this. Okay. Next, if you go into the Google VR folder, under the Google VR folder, we have prefabs, and we have scripts, and we have demo, which is what you want to go to, demos. Under demos, you're going to be into scenes. And the scene we want is Hello VR, like a hello world, right? You double click that scene. So again, I'm into Google VR, demos, scenes. Double click on Hello VR. You're going to see a scene like this. Are you with me?
Google VR scripts.
Google VR, demos, scenes, Hello VR. Are you with me? And if I run it, if you can run this, it'll look like this. But what it'll try and do is actually run on my phone sometimes, right? So it'll actually look like this, where I can use my phone as a preview to look around, right? So I can look around the scene. This will be like what it's like in VR on the phone. Now notice that on the scene, it looks pretty good, but take a look at my phone. There's a bit of lag, right? Because we're using preview. We're not actually doing VR. If I go over the actual target, so I want to see this target here. This is the thing that I want to grab, right? And the game is you select it, and when you select it on your device, so I want to kind of click on there. I can't do it right now because my phone won't respond, my fingers. Then it goes away. That's what the actual thing is supposed to be. So if I look around, I can look around the entire scene here, and it looks pretty smooth, okay? So you can see that the VR stuff is working on the phone. Now, the problem is when I want to do a build. If I want to build for this device, it's going to fail right now, right? And it's going to fail for a couple of reasons. The main reason is my SDKs and my API is totally out of date. My phone needs to be updated, and so there's some prep to do. And also, like we said before, I'm downloading the latest versions of stuff here, right? You can see that it's still downloading. Google API, image 27 to 29. It says, please wait until the installation finishes. It's going to take its sweet time. And then I'll have to upload or, wait till this is done. By the way, when your Android Studio is going to be the thing that controls all your APIs, and we're going to get into that next week a little bit more when we do our build. Let me show you what the build process looks like, though. For the build process, you need to go to File, and you need to go to Build and Run, or Build Set. Let's try Build Settings first. And then you notice that it tells you what you're building. I'm going to click on Build and Run, this one. And when I do that, it's going to ask me, where do I want to store my build? I want to store it inside another folder called Builds. So I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this Builds. There it is. And inside the Builds folder, I want to make a name for this build. We'll call it the Android Builds. Right? That's what it is. And we'll save it. And then it's going to try to install, and it's going to say, man, I'm sorry, but your SDK tools have to be updated from version 25 because your tools are old, and you have to update the Android SDK, right? I can use highest, or I can try and update. If I update, it's going to try and do that. And like I said before, it's going to fail. Notice the red mark on the bottom, right? It won't allow me to do it until I actually physically update it on my own. Okay? So we're going to do that next week when my APIs are all updated. I'll update it at home because there's 30 gigs of stuff to update for myself, right? I'm not going to do that here, right? This is no time. Yes?
It comes with the
Android Studio? No. You have to go and download everything and select your APIs, which actually the main one, the latest version comes with it. I think API 27 or 28 comes with it. And then you have to install other APIs. We need 24 and 19. Those are the two we need. The other ones, we don't care so much about, right? Yeah.
Are you using the Remote 5 on your phone to run VR, or?
I'm not. I did it all. I did it all on its own. Like I didn't install anything. Yeah. I didn't install anything. Maybe I installed it for a previous build. I'm probably using Unity Remote. Okay. I'm done the recording. I'm going to stop recording now, and I want to come around physically in class and show you the virtual reality headset that I brought in that is compatible with these phones. I'm going to pass it actually around, and I want you to take a look at it and see if it fits your phone, right? Most likely it will not, right? Just being honest, right? But for now, I'm going to stop recording. Any other questions before we stop recording? Yes? Do you need there? Okay, I'll come back to you. So again, next on Thursday, we're going to do a bit of, just to end this off, just people to know, Thursday we're going to get to there. Our lecture is going to be the second part of our day. Our first part of our day is meeting together, taking a look at your backlog, your project backlog, and your sprint backlog. I want to take a look at those two things and see how you're doing. And then there's going to be a mark, an exercise that I'm going to be doing on Thursday as well as today, right? So today's exercise is going to be due next week, the tower, and Thursday's exercise is going to be due in day on Thursday, okay?
Will we have an exercise next Tuesday, or is it
Yes.
going to be the tower?
We're going to keep doing new things all the time, right? So I'm trying to get you guys to chomp into this stuff as much as possible so that when it comes to actually building out your game, you'll have enough, maybe too much information, but enough that you can have some ideas, be creative. That's what I want. That's what this whole thing's about, right? I don't want you to be modelers at the end. That's not the point. It's
Right.
just understanding how things work. All right, let's stop recording now.
YouTube.